Imagine you're wandering the rolling hills of Ireland on a quiet, misty evening. The air feels heavy, carrying a faint chill that raises the hairs on your arms. Shadows stretch long across the ancient ruins and fields, and the soft rustle of leaves seems louder than it should. There's a stillness that isn't peaceful. It's the kind that makes you glance over your shoulder, half expecting to see something just out of sight. The kind that makes the whispers of old stories impossible to ignore. It's in this setting that legends come alive, the kind passed down through generations, whispered around fires, or murmured as warnings. Among them is the tale of a woman who rose from betrayal and heartbreak to become something far more terrifying than a mere ghost. Her story is not one of simple revenge or mindless malice. It's a chilling reminder of how pain can linger, twisting into something darker. You might not believe in her, but out here, surrounded by the eerie beauty of the Irish countryside, it's hard not to feel her presence. This is the story of the Dearg Dua, the bloodthirsty maiden of Ireland. Long before the Dearg Dua's name struck fear into the hearts of those who walked after dark, she was a maiden whose beauty seemed to belong to the other world. Her golden hair rippled like sunlight dancing on water, and her eyes held a depth that made anyone who gazed into them feel as though they'd glimpsed a piece of eternity. She was the pride of her village, and yet her beauty would become her downfall. Life in her small village was simple, and she found joy in the quiet moments of her youth, helping her mother with chores, wandering the meadows, and meeting her beloved in secret. The farmer she loved wasn't rich or powerful, but his laughter warmed her heart, and his kindness made her feel truly seen. In their stolen moments together, she dreamed of a life free from burden, a simple home, children's laughter, and the safety of his arms. But the world is rarely kind to dreams. Her father, weighed down by years of hardship and tempted by the offer of a wealthy lord, sold her into a marriage that she did not want. The farmer, powerless against the influence of wealth and status, could do nothing as the woman he loved was taken from him. Her father's choice, though born of desperation, became the catalyst for the chain of events that would ultimately lead to her death and transformation. The Lord, who was as ruthless as he was rich, saw her as little more than a trophy to be possessed. Her tears fell on deaf ears as her father's resolve hardened, and her pleas for mercy were silenced by her family's desperation for survival. Her wedding was no celebration. Though the villagers lined the streets, their eyes were filled with pity. As she was taken to the Lord's estate, the life she had hoped for slipped further and further away. The Lord's estate, with its cold stone walls and forbidding shadows, became her prison. He demanded obedience, growing jealous even of the sun that warmed her skin. His punishments for defiance were cruel and relentless, and the once vibrant maiden became a shadow of herself. Her songs grew quiet, her laughter ceased, and her heart broke a little more with each passing day. The betrayal she felt, first by her father, then by the man who treated her as property, was a wound too deep to heal, even in death. It is said that when she finally succumbed, her spirit did not leave in peace. Her body may have grown still, but the sorrow and rage she carried remained tethered to the earth. Her family, bound by the Lord's wishes even in death, could not afford to bury her in hallowed ground. Instead, she was laid to rest on a bleak patch of land, with no blessing to guide her soul to the afterlife. But death was not the end for her. On the first full moon after her burial, the villagers whispered of strange sounds coming from her grave, a low hum, like a mournful cry carried on the wind. By the next morning, the stories of bloodless livestock and missing travelers had begun. The maiden, it seemed, had returned, but she was no longer the gentle soul they had known. The cause of her transformation remains a mystery, a chilling question with no clear answer. Did her anguish summon a darkness from within her? Or was her grave disturbed by something malevolent from the unseen realms? Some say a fairy, angry at the cruelty she endured, cursed her to rise again, a shadow of what she had been in life. Others whisper that her suffering was so great it warped the very fabric of her being, turning her into a creature of vengeance. Whatever the cause, one thing is certain. The Dearg Dua was born from pain and betrayal, a haunting reminder that the wounds of life do not always heal in death. The name Dearg Dua translates to red thirst, or red bloodsucker. When the Dearg Dua walks the earth, she carries the echoes of her former life, a haunting beauty that veils the darkness within. At first glance, she looks no different from the maiden she once was, her radiant form seemingly untouched by the grave. Her golden hair glows faintly, as though kissed by moonlight, and her skin has the pallor of porcelain, fragile yet captivating. Her eyes, however, hold a disquieting depth, a faint shadow that hints at the sorrow and wrath lurking beneath her enchanting exterior. This deceptive elegance is her most dangerous weapon. Travelers and villagers alike, drawn by her ghostly allure, find themselves unable to look away. Her presence is intoxicating, like a dream that blurs the line between reality and fantasy. Even those who have heard the whispers of her name and the warnings of her curse are not immune. Against all reason, they find themselves stepping closer, compelled by an allure that feels irresistible. But her beauty is a lie, and it hides something far more terrifying. As her prey succumbs to her pull, the illusion begins to fracture. Her once soft eyes darken into black voids, empty and unforgiving. Her lips twist into a feral snarl, revealing teeth unnaturally sharp. Her nails, elegant at first glance, grow into jagged talons that glint like steel in the dim light. Her pale skin takes on a corpse-like hue, mottled and cold, and the faint scent of earth and decay fills the air around her. The transformation is as swift as it is horrifying. One moment, her prey is captivated by her beauty. The next, they are face to face with the predator she has become. Her speed is unnerving, her movements sharp and inhuman. Her victims rarely have time to scream before her talons and teeth find their mark. The blood she takes sustains her, feeding the unnatural hunger that binds her to this world. Yet even in her monstrous form, the Dearg Dua retains a ghostly elegance. She does not lumber or stumble like the undead of other tales. Her movements are eerily graceful, like a predator who knows the power of patience. This unsettling combination of beauty and terror makes her more than a creature of nightmare. It makes her a force of nature, as unyielding and inevitable as the tides. Though her prey sees her most clearly in their final moments, glimpses of her true form have been reported by those lucky enough to escape. Farmers returning from the fields at dusk have described fleeting figures in the shadows, their faces pale as death, with eyes that seem to pierce the soul. A few daring souls have claimed to see her by moonlight, lingering near her grave or wandering the hills, her ghostly figure glowing faintly in the darkness. These survivors, however, are rare, for the Dearg Dua does not leave witnesses lightly. Her ability to shift between radiant beauty and monstrous horror is not merely a trick, it is a reflection of her dual nature. She is both the innocent maiden betrayed by life and the vengeful predator born of death. To look upon her is to see both sides of this terrible coin, a glimpse of the woman she was and the monster she has become. The Dearg Dua is no ordinary predator. Her existence is fueled by a complex mix of vengeance, heartbreak, and an insatiable hunger for blood. Unlike other creatures of myth who might hunt indiscriminately, her actions are deliberate and often calculated, though not without moments of uncontrollable instinct. She is as much a being of purpose as she is one of primal need. And it is this duality that makes her both terrifying and tragic. Her hunts are often marked by a sense of poetic justice. She targets the cruel and the powerful, those whose actions echo the abuse she suffered in life. Men who exploit others, who wield their influence to harm, or who show no regard for those beneath them often find themselves lured by her ethereal charm. Her beauty draws them in, their arrogance blinding them to the danger until it is far too late. But the Dearg Dua is not a judge acting purely out of moral principle. Hunger often overrides her sense of purpose, and in these moments, she becomes a creature of instinct rather than intention. Farmers working late into the night, travelers lost on unfamiliar roads, and even innocent villagers who unknowingly cross her path can fall victim to her thirst. Folklore speaks of merchants who vanished along well-traveled routes, and shepherds found lifeless among their flocks, their faces pale and drained of blood. The randomness of these attacks serves as a grim reminder that the Dearg Dua is not governed solely by vengeance. She is also a creature of need, driven by a curse that does not allow for mercy. It is said that she struggles to distinguish between the guilty and the blameless when the need to feed overtakes her, making her as unpredictable as she is fearsome. Despite her monstrous deeds, legends whisper of traces of humanity lingering within her. Some say that the maiden she once was still exists, buried deep beneath the layers of grief and rage. These whispers are fueled by rare stories of those who have approached her grave with songs or prayers. In such moments, it is said, she becomes still, as though listening, and her terrifying visage softens briefly. For an instant, her eyes seem to carry the sorrow of a life stolen too soon, and her movements lose their predatory sharpness. But these fleeting glimpses of her former self are just that, moments. The curse that binds her is powerful, and the hunger that drives her cannot be silenced for long. What makes the Dearg Dua particularly unsettling is her lack of remorse. While fragments of her humanity may surface on rare occasions, they do not seem to diminish her need to hunt. Her actions are not born of sadism. She does not revel in the suffering she causes. Instead, she is driven by an emptiness that cannot be filled, a hunger that consumes all reason. In this way, she is as much a victim of her curse as those she preys upon. Unlike other creatures of myth, who are often painted in stark colors of good or evil, the Dearg Dua occupies a gray area. She is both the victim and the predator, the wronged and the wrongdoer. This duality makes her not only a figure of fear but also one of pity, a tragic reminder of how easily pain and betrayal can twist the purest of souls into something unrecognizable. In addition, the locations tied to her legend are just as much a part of her story as the victims themselves. Main among these is her burial site, said to lie in an unmarked grave near Waterford, a place steeped in both beauty and sadness. The land surrounding her grave is described as desolate, with sparse vegetation and a haunting stillness that keeps animals and travelers alike at bay. On nights of the full moon, villagers claim to hear faint whispers carried on the wind, soft, mournful sounds that send shivers down the spine. Beyond her grave, the Irish countryside is rife with places where the Dearg Dua is said to roam. Ancient ruins, mist-covered fields, and shadowy woods serve as her hunting grounds. Even today, these areas are avoided after nightfall, their connection to the Dearg Dua enough to keep the bravest souls at a distance. Hey everyone, just a quick intermission here. I wanted to say thank you for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. Did you know that over 80% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed to the channel? If you've enjoyed this content so far, it would be incredible if you could hit that subscribe button. It's a small gesture, but it really helps the channel grow and ensures that you won't miss any more of our fascinating stories we explore together. Also, if you're feeling generous, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share with anyone else who may enjoy it. Your support really does make a difference and keeps the content coming. Thanks again, and let's get back to the story. The Dearg Dua's powers are as chilling as her legend, turning her from a wronged maiden into one of the most feared creatures in Irish folklore. Her abilities are rooted in the tragedy of her story, each one a grim extension of the grief and rage that forged her existence. To encounter the Dearg Dua is to face a predator who wields her supernatural gifts with devastating precision. As we mentioned before, her most potent weapon is her allure. The beauty that brought her so much suffering in life has been sharpened into a deadly tool in death. She exudes a charm that is almost impossible to resist, a magnetic pull that draws her prey closer with every glance and subtle movement. This enchantment isn't merely physical. It reaches into the very minds of her victims, clouding their judgment and lulling them into a false sense of safety. Even the most cautious individuals find themselves inexplicably captivated, as though the air itself thickens with her presence, making it difficult to think clearly or escape. Her voice is another instrument of seduction. Soft and melodic, it carries an unnatural sweetness that weaves a spell over those who hear it. Stories tell of her singing faint lullabies near her grave, the mournful melodies drifting through the night and drawing unsuspecting travelers into her grasp. Her voice can calm the most vigilant of hearts, lowering defenses just enough for her to strike. When the moment comes, her strength reveals itself. Despite her delicate appearance, the Dearg Dua is unnaturally strong, able to overpower even the most formidable opponents with ease. Her movements are swift and deliberate, giving her an advantage over those who would attempt to fight back or flee. Her nails, sharp as daggers, are capable of slicing through flesh and bone, leaving her victims no chance of survival. Her bite, however, is her deadliest feature. With each drop of blood she takes, her power grows, the stolen life force sustaining her existence and strengthening the curse that binds her. Beyond her physical abilities, the Dearg Dua possesses an uncanny knack for blending into the shadows. She moves silently, her presence often undetected until it's too late. This ability to disappear into the darkness makes her especially dangerous, as few can see her coming or predict where she might strike next. Some claim that she can even vanish entirely, reappearing elsewhere with a speed that defies logic, though whether this is an actual power or a result of her predatory instincts is unknown. Yet, despite the horrifying nature of her abilities, there is an undeniable elegance to the way she wields them. She is deliberate, calculating, and eerily graceful in her hunts. This combination of beauty, strength, and precision makes her an entity that is both mesmerizing and terrifying, a creature that commands both fear and awe. Though the Dearg Dua is a formidable creature, she is not invincible. Like many beings of legend, her powers are matched by a set of vulnerabilities, offering those who know her story a chance to defend themselves. These weaknesses are not mere superstitions but practical measures born of centuries of survival against her nocturnal hunts. The most well-known method to contain the Dearg Dua is to pile stones atop her grave. This act, both symbolic and practical, serves as a barrier that prevents her from rising. The weight of the stones represents the community's collective effort to keep her tethered to the earth, a reminder that even the strongest curses can be held at bay through unity and vigilance. It is said that these stones must be replenished regularly, as neglecting the grave allows her the chance to escape once more. For villagers near her burial site, this ritual has become a grim but necessary tradition. Consecrated ground is another key defense against the Dearg Dua. Unlike her grave, which lies in unconsecrated soil, holy places repel her with their sanctity. She cannot step onto hallowed ground, as the purity of such places is anathema to her corrupted spirit. This vulnerability is a stark contrast to her power, highlighting the divide between the innocent maiden she once was and the cursed predator she has become. Charms and prayers also play a significant role in protecting against the Dearg Dua. Villagers carry small tokens of iron, believing that the metal wards off evil. These charms are often simple: nails, horseshoes, or small iron trinkets, worn or carried as a precaution. Prayers, too, are said to have power, particularly when recited in moments of fear. These rituals reflect the deep connection between faith and survival in Irish folklore, where the spiritual world is never far from the everyday. Yet her greatest weakness may be awareness itself. The Dearg Dua thrives on surprise, her prey often falling victim to their own recklessness or desires. Those who heed the warnings of her legend, who avoid walking alone at night, who remain vigilant in her presence, are far less likely to meet her wrath. Her power is as much psychological as it is physical, and those who resist her charm and stay grounded in reality are often able to escape her clutches. Still, vigilance alone is not always enough. It is for this reason that the protective measures surrounding her grave are so critical. The villagers who maintain the stone barrier understand that their safety depends on keeping her contained, and the act of piling stones is as much about ensuring her imprisonment as it is about reminding themselves of the danger she poses. Despite these measures, the Dearg Dua remains a persistent threat. Stones can be displaced, consecrated ground cannot follow travelers, and even the most steadfast individuals can falter in moments of weakness. Her legend endures because her weaknesses, while significant, do not make her easily defeated. They offer hope, but not certainty. a fragile balance that keeps her story alive in the minds of those who know her name. The Dearg Dua is often mentioned in the same breath as vampires, and it's not hard to see why. Both are nocturnal predators, driven by an insatiable thirst for blood, and both use their beauty and charm to lure their victims into fatal traps. Yet while they share these similarities, the Dearg Dua stands apart as a figure unique to Irish folklore, shaped by her own tragic origins and the culture that birthed her legend. One of the most notable parallels between the Dearg Dua and vampires is her method of hunting. Like the vampires of Gothic literature and European myth, she relies on her appearance to deceive and entrap her prey. Her allure, however, feels rawer, more natural than the polished sophistication of characters like Count Dracula. Where the vampire seduces with words and wit, the Dearg Dua's pull is almost instinctive, a deep, primal attraction that bypasses logic altogether. This makes her even more dangerous, as her victims are ensnared not by conversation, but by an irresistible, otherworldly force. Just as vampires sustain their immortality through the lifeblood of their victims, the Dearg Dua's curse is tied to her need to feed. However, her hunger feels less like a calculated ritual and more like a desperate necessity. She does not revel in the act, nor does she seek to transform others into creatures like herself. Her feeding is an act of survival, driven by the dark energy that binds her to the mortal world. In this way, she is less a manipulative predator and more a tragic figure caught in a cycle she cannot escape. The Dearg Dua also lacks many of the stereotypical traits associated with vampires in modern lore. She has no aversion to sunlight, though she chooses to hunt at night, and she does not transform into bats or other creatures. There is no indication that she fears garlic, silver, or wooden stakes, and her connection to the natural world, misty fields, shadowy woods, and her lonely grave, gives her a distinctly grounded presence compared to the aristocratic vampires of later stories. What sets the Dearg Dua apart most profoundly is her origin. While many vampire legends speak of deliberate transformations, individuals choosing to embrace immortality or falling victim to curses placed upon them, the Dearg Dua's story is rooted in betrayal and heartbreak. Her curse was not sought, but thrust upon her, born from the anguish of her life and the injustices she endured. It is this tragic depth that may have influenced the development of vampire lore across Europe and beyond. The concept of a beautiful predator, using seduction to mask its monstrous nature, likely resonated with early tales of vampires, especially as Irish immigrants carried their folklore to other lands. The Dearg Dua's emphasis on vengeance, heartbreak, and justice adds a layer of complexity that has echoes in later vampire stories, where the line between victim and villain becomes increasingly blurred. Yet the Dearg Dua remains uniquely her own, a haunting figure who reflects the timeless fears of betrayal, loss, and the cost of unbridled power. Her influence may not always be explicit, but it lingers in the shadows of vampire lore. Each time a vampire's charm masks its deadly nature, or a tragic backstory is revealed to humanize the monster, a trace of the Dearg Dua can be felt, a quiet, ghostly presence that reminds us of her enduring power and the cultural legacy she left behind. The Dearg Dua is more than a creature of myth. She is a symbol of sorrow, betrayal, and the unrelenting power of vengeance. Her story is a chilling reminder that cruelty can leave wounds so deep that even death cannot silence them. Bound by a curse and driven by an insatiable hunger, she stalks the shadowy places of Ireland, her beauty concealing the predator within. Though centuries have passed, her legend endures, rooted in the land and whispered by those who dare not forget. The Dearg Dua's tale speaks to universal truths about pain, justice, and the consequences of unchecked cruelty. She remains a haunting figure, her presence felt in every cautionary tale about the dangers of betrayal and the fragility of the human spirit. In her, the line between victim and predator blurs, leaving us to wonder how much of her humanity still lingers beneath the curse. And what does her story say about the legacies we leave behind?